Did you fall for the Telstra billing scam?
And which smartphone is 2016's best?
Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Alcatel.
Welcome to Vertical Hold, the tech show where we channel surf through the headlines in search of the big picture. I'm Alex Kidman, and I'm here with a man who can count faster than the AEC, Adam Turner. We're also joined by Finder.com.au Editor-in-Chief, Angus Kidman. Angus, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, gentlemen.
Adam, what's new in tech?
Good news for Netflix fans, with the streaming giant striking a multi-year deal to add shows from the CW network like The Flash, Supergirl and The Vampire Diaries only 8 days after the program's season finale. For now, this deal only applies to US Netflix, but it's a good sign that traditional TV producers are willing to move with the times.
Google's finally unveiled the naming conventions for its next major Android update. While we privately held out hope for Android Nigel, it will instead be Android Nougat. It's expected to arrive later this year, and as usual, owners of Google's Nexus devices should see it on their devices first.
As the NBN slowly reaches more Australian homes, support for Ultra HD Netflix streaming is coming to more set-top boxes. Apart from the handful of Ultra HD Blu-ray players already on the market, Fetch TV's new high-end digital TV and streaming box, the so-called Fetch TV Mighty, is one of the world's first set-top boxes to support 4K Netflix. It's good news for early adopters who bought an Ultra HD television which lacks inbuilt 4K Netflix.
The ACCC has announced it'll hold an inquiry into whether ADSL should continue to be a declared and therefore regulated service. It's required to do so by law, but if it opts to deregulate ADSL services, it's likely that the cost for subscribers could rise markedly, even with the NBN incoming. So Gus, I know you've been across this story. What does ADSL deregulation really mean?
Well, ADSL deregulation was really important because without getting totally bogged down in the long and tedious politics of it, the deregulation ensures that the ADSL network, most of which Telstra owns, which it got to build with taxpayer funding, is made available to other providers, so there's more competition in the market. Before this happened, Telstra behaved pretty disgracefully in this space. There was an infamous occasion about 10 years ago now where Telstra was selling ADSL plans to customers for less than it was prepared to sell them wholesale to other people, which obviously made it completely unprofitable. And basically Telstra just kept doing this because he'd get away with it. So it took a long time.
Bloody useless, that's why.
Well, that may well have been a factor. But I think finally, so 5 years ago, the service was declared. So this meant that effectively, the prices that Telstra was allowed to charge were set by the ACCC rather than Telstra just saying, hey, we're going to come up with our own terms. So that happened 5 years ago. There's going to deregulate. That only stays in place until February 2017, and the ACCC is required to do a review of that now and to say, okay, look, do we still need to keep regulating ADSL, or can we now say, oh, look, the market's competitive enough, we can go back to just letting Telstra set its own prices for it?
That doesn't sound like a good idea to me. I wouldn't
Definitely
trust
not.
Telstra about as far as I can kick it. I think, especially when we're moving to the NBN now, it just means the few people who are the strugglers to get on the NBN will just get screwed.
Absolutely, and I mean, we're still facing a situation where, for many people, whatever form of NBN they're going to get is at least 3 years away. So if suddenly we get to the beginning of next year and they say, oh no, the market can look after itself, people are either going to find that the prices are going to go up, there's going to be less competition. I could imagine Telstra going back to its kind of slightly unpleasant behaviour of telling wholesale suppliers, I know we haven't got any ports available in this exchange, but then suddenly if you go and try and buy a plan through Telstra directly, they manage to find one. So.
Yeah.
And I suppose in a way this could be even worse, because with the NBN incoming, all of the competitor ISPs are much more likely to kind of go, well, the ADSL pie is shrinking anyway. Is it something that's really worth spending, potentially lots of money on lawyers or challenges or what have you to fight? It might be a fight where they just kind of roll over and go, oh, well, it's a dying market anyway. So it could be bad news heaped on top of bad news.
Yeah.
Yes, it doesn't feel like it's going to be a great outcome, and I would hope that, there's a recognition that no, until effectively we reach the point when the NBN does exist, because everyone gets excited about the NBN for speed, but one of the important things about the NBN is that it's a network that everybody has completely equal access to.
Yeah.
And it's been set up that way right from the start, unlike what happened with the previous network when Telstra was privatised, when basically that was just massively botched.
Basically, if we could trust the market to take care of itself, we wouldn't be in this mess in the first place.
So, Adam, emails have been appearing, apparently from Telstra, offering customers their money back. Should we all be celebrating and dancing in the streets? Because Telstra doesn't really give money away all that often, does it?
I was going to say, it's so damn hard to get any money out of Telstra, you should be suspicious straight away. Yes, this is one of the better crafted scam emails we've seen recently. Scammers these days tend not to tell you so much that you won the British lottery or something like that. It tends to be something a bit more boring, like, oh, there's a parcel waiting for you, or here's a tiny refund, or something like this. So these scammers are pretty sophisticated because they've obviously got a list of Telstra customers, because these emails have only gone to Telstra customers. They look a hell of a lot like an official email from Telstra, and it says, we're sorry, but we managed to bill you twice, so we owe you some money. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I've had Telstra cock up my bill enough times that I totally believe that's possible. And so they say, right, we're really sorry, click on this link here, go and log into your Telstra My Portal account, and we'll give you your money back. You think, oh, this is alright. So you click on the link, but of course you don't go to the Telstra portal, you go something that looks a hell of a lot like the Telstra portal, log in with your details, and then it asks for your credit card details and your date of birth and all this information they really shouldn't need to know.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Because if you have been screwed by Telstra before, you know that usually when you do get the money back, it ends up being a credit on your account. They're not going to send you an email and ask for your credit card details to give you your money back. But at this point, you've given these scammers all your credit card details, including your CVC number, your date of birth. I'm surprised your mother's maiden name wasn't on there. You really hand them a lot. So now that not only can they go shopping with your credit card, but they've got enough information to build up a profile on you, open other accounts in your name. It's a whole identity theft kind of nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's the application of a pre-existing idea, and in fact, at the same time that we're seeing this, there's also been a Netflix scam doing the rounds via SMS, suggesting that your account will be cut off, and they play on, I guess, different psychological impulses. The account cut off is fairly classic panic behaviour. Yeah. Oh my god, I don't want that cut off. I'd better press their button and go through to their thing that looks like the portal. The Telstra one is more, I think, in a way, about greed. It's about people going, oh, money. Yes, I want money. And, I believe it as much as I believe that nice Nigerian prince is about to send me billions of dollars.
Oh, but, no, he's sending me money too. Yeah, I know that guy. He's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. He's a really nice guy. But, Gus, do you think there are other reasons why these scams perpetuate when in some ways they appear to be a bit transparent?
Well, yeah, as, arguably recent election results prove, you can never go broke, assuming people are dumb. So I think, there's always going to be a target of people out there because, lots of people are susceptible. Lots of people just believe stuff that comes in. And if it looks vaguely official and there's a logo on it, then, some people are going to fall for it. In fact, what's disturbing is that some studies suggest that messages that actually have spelling mistakes in them and errors are more likely to get a response than ones that are actually completely professional and accurate.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah,
that's the first thing you look for. That's the first thing. Oh god. Sorry, people. I need a moment.
Well, while Adam has his moment, Gus, what advice would you generally give then for people wanting to work out, hey, is this legit? Because maybe someone does owe me a refund, or maybe my account is about to be cancelled, or is it fake? How should people go around sifting the real stuff from the fakes?
Well, I think you just have to be paranoid and you have to go, look, I'm not going to respond to these things in email because they're just too common. Yeah. If you think, oh, look, I might be due for a refund, then in this case, the sensible thing to do is get out your phone and ring Telstra. Now, that is something I would normally never advise anybody to do because it's an unpleasant experience. But
don't make
on the
any
off
plans.
chance they really do, there is something going on, you need to talk to somebody at Telstra and find out rather than relying on an incoming email. So I just think in any of these situations, whether it's for a phone bill, whether it's something that's to do with your online banking, which is another common one, that's the point at which don't be going online. Go old-fashioned, get on the phone, and you'll very quickly find out that in all probability it's a scam.
Just to interrupt, if you are ringing them, ring through their main call centre number. Do not ring through the number provided in the scam email.
That is a very, very good point, yeah. And I mean, equally, if you are talking about a service that doesn't have an obvious number to call, then the solution there, if you're concerned, would be to open up a completely fresh browser, completely fresh window, find the URL you want, preferably just type it in yourself, just to be on the double safe side, and log in that way, because that way you know you're on the correct site.
So, Alex, we're halfway through the year, and, Apple aside, pretty much everyone's got their new high-end smartphone out there. What do you like?
Well, I'm a little bit surprised with what I like, because historically I have jumped around phone models like a madman.
I've seen your Google search history. I'm surprised at what you like too.
Well, that was meant to be private, but obviously you paid the subscription fee. But moving aside from that, the phone that I think has actually stood out is not one that I would have particularly picked, and that's the Samsung S7 Edge. Now, it's not cheap. It is a premium device, and when I'm talking about the best phone, I think you do need to look at the premium space, or you should be looking at the premium space at least first, because in theory, if you're going to pay a fair amount of money, you should get a fair amount of phone. And in the case of the S7 Edge, you really do. It surprised me in that it was one of the earlier announced phones. They announced it at MWC alongside the LG G5. And I keep thinking, right, the next phone I test is going to be as good or better than the S7 Edge. And so far, very little has been. There have been a few things which have stood out in different ways. And obviously, a lot of this is fairly subjective, and whether or not you like a large phone or a small phone, or the camera is important, or other features are important, or you're iOS only, or you're Android only, or God help you, you're Windows Phone only, then that can have an effect on your overall choices. But yeah, so far the S7 Edge, I think, is kind of uber alles, with a slight shout out to things like the Huawei P9, because the camera on that's really nice. What about you?
To be honest, I haven't looked at as many smartphones of late. Is the Edge the one with that curve on it?
Yeah, look, and the curve, I've got to be honest here, the curve is useless. Samsung's had 2 years to roll this around.
Testing that phone.
And it still does nothing that you can't do another way. It's a bit like Force Touch on the iPhones. Yeah. It's kind of, look, it's there, it's a feature. That is not what impresses me with the phone. What impresses me with the phone is it's fast, it's responsive, the battery life is brilliant. This is something that Apple still really hasn't addressed with its sole entry this year, the iPhone SE. But it offers that kind of fairly complete package. But then again, as I say, for the money it would want to. Meanwhile, some of the other big high contenders, I've just been playing with the new Sony, the Xperia X Performance, and it's a real letdown. The battery life's not great. The performance isn't particularly spectacular.
So it's all poorly named, is what you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah. LG showed a lot of promise with the G5 because it had that whole modular thing, but then the way you did the modular thing was a bit disappointing. The upcoming Motorola phones probably do that a little bit better. But the other thing, actually, and I think this is really kind of interesting for this year, the S7 Edge stands out, and I do think it's a really good smartphone. But what I'm seeing is an awful lot of mid-range handsets, which are really starting to push against what the premium handsets offer, because a lot of them are coming with cameras which are going to satisfy most smartphone camera users. If you want serious camera stuff, you're still looking at a DSLR, folks. But if you want decent-ish camera stuff, even some of the mid-ranges will shoot good photos for you. And that, of course, makes a premium handset a harder buy. What do you reckon, Gus?
Yes, I think there's been a really noticeable transition there, moving into space, saying, for all those people who don't want to spend $1,000 on a phone anymore, it really doesn't seem necessary. I mean, that's what was fascinating to me about Apple going off cycle and deciding to come out with the iPhone SE. It was basically, even though that's not the cheapest phone on the planet, that was Apple acknowledging that, okay, we need to feel like we've got something new and happening in this space rather than just selling people the model from 2 years ago. Having said that, I mean, I would be in the same line as you. I'm a big fan of the S7 and the S7 Edge, and it seems everybody is. For the sales figures that we've got so far for this year for Australia, those two devices collectively account for something like 10% of all phones sold, so they've been a really substantial hit.
I would agree that the mid-range phones, because I did have a bit of a look at phones earlier this year, but it was actually to help my parents buy smartphones. So I wasn't looking at $1,000 phones because they're not interested in $1,000 phones and they don't need $1,000 phones. Again, you could go up and spend $500-600, but these days I think people just think, I want a good phone, I must have to go flagship. But it's definitely mid-range phones have really lifted their game in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's kind of like driving a car. Not, Ferraris are nice, but not everyone actually needs to drive one. Sometimes you can just get by with a Yaris.
The problem with phones, though, is it used to be that there were Ferraris and there were Minis, and there wasn't much in between. Anything in between was really just a souped-up Mini. We actually do have your decent, Holden Statesman or whatever it is of smartphones now. That's a nice car that's not going to set you back, a Ferrari kind of price.
I'm glad you jumped in there because I was totally running out of... I was going to say, I'm running out of car analogies here. My knowledge is getting stretched.
I hope that the Statesman is a Holden. If Holden and Statesman are listening, I'm really sorry. Maybe you should send me one and I'll test it out.
Holden Statesman's for all. The other thing is, of course, we are still only halfway through the year, and there are still devices to come. Fairly obviously and evidently, whilst they haven't said anything on record, of course, there will be a new iPhone, probably around the September-October
Apple doesn't comment on things it hasn't commented on yet.
That's exactly right. It's not allowed to comment on things it hasn't commented on. Google presumably has some new devices. Whether or not they'll be Nexus branded and quite which features they'll have apart from Android N, of course, isn't exactly known, and there seem to be fairly significant rumblings around the next Galaxy Note. Now, Gus, I know you're a big fan of the Samsung Note devices as well. What do you think the Note, a new purported Note, would need to really stand out for you?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, I'm a current Note user. The Note's been my main phone for the last few years. I don't know that it necessarily has to do that much because the Note tends not to have all the extreme features that go into the Edge device. It has good battery life, but for me, that's still the area where phones can continue to improve. So I would really hope that they do that, and that maybe they continue down the path of just not putting so many Samsung apps on it, getting it closer to actually just running a native version of Android N. If that happens, I'll be happy.
Well, that just about wraps it up for this episode of Vertical Hold. Remember, if you've got any comments, hit us up in the comment section on YouTube, via Twitter, or the Facebook Vertical Hold page. Thanks to Angus for joining us for the show.
All your base belong to us.
Thanks for joining us, and remember, if you like what you hear, hit that subscribe button. Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Alcatel.